All right, real quick, we're gonna talk about entities and intentions, right? As we know, deities are related to like the body, right? Entity is related to an energy, right? The intention, right? And how, we know that there's demonic entities or negative entities and so forth. And we have to understand what this is in its nature, because books don't tell us this. You can't draw this stuff up. You can't measure it, right? I mean, obviously they draw like little demons and stuff, and like fables and whatnot. But let's stay on point. So if you're unfamiliar with a tesseract is a fourth dimensional object that folds and expands from within itself. But it's not anchored into any one thing. It's constantly changing, constantly moving, constantly folding within itself and coming out of itself. But it's almost like a jellyfish, right? The way a jellyfish moves is constantly like moving forward. And in a fourth dimensional aspect, these energies that are like that are just constantly looking for the next thing. I made an analogy in the last video about the snake game, right? How the snake game is like, it's just like one little line that's finding a dot and then finding the next dot and then finding the next dot. And every time it gets a dot, it gets longer, right? And that's what these entities are. That's what they do. They're not attached to any one realm. They're not attached to any one person, right? However, they are locked within a certain frequency because they aren't accessing the higher realms, and they can't. And if anything, they work kind of hand in hand with the veil. So these entities that come around and will want to get your tesseract or your mind to start to go in this direction, we have to understand that these things or these emotions and stuff like that, we have to not allow them to utilize our space or utilize our vessel, right? Because they're between the fifth and the third. They're here trying to intercept the divine connection between you and your higher self and interject you with a false, what would you say, notion, like your divine, like your higher self, right? Your subconscious gives you these notions to be like, hey, don't do that. Hey, do this. Hey, like, remember, you got to do this today. Or like, hey, you should get up right now and go work out. Like, there's a higher version of you that gives you the things that you need to better yourself, right? And to expand yourself. And there's other lessers that are trying to do the same thing, but to destroy you or to make you more susceptible to even more control down the line, right? It's the thing about leverage, right? In space. So these entities, whether it's wrath or gluttony or lust or pride or sloth or whatever, these things will exist in the fourth, right? Just like an emotion, just like a thought process, just like an archetype, right? Type beat that needs a person in order for that archetype to be actualized, right? Like like the hero or whatever, right? Like, these things exist in our mind, but there needs to be somebody to play that role, right? As you see in sports, there's always somebody that comes along that changes the game, or like, y'all know, I don't gotta keep explaining it, but it's because they're being driven by something greater, right? There's a cycle that's happening, that's playing out, right? These people come along and they fulfill these roles, right? They play these roles to advance things along. But we also have roles that come down that are played out to do the opposite. So we have to understand, although, yes, we are in the third and we are consciously seeing ourselves or witnessing ourselves experience here, real time, like life, we have to also know that it's not always us that is influencing our actions. Just like how artists say, this song didn't come from me, it came from above. It came from, they gave it to me type vibe. It's also the same thing with negative energies too, right? Where they will come and it'll be a thing where now that drives your whole, it's like your whole vessel is hijacked. You know what I mean? Like, you ever like lose something that you feel like you should have won, or you ever feel like you've been betrayed, and your whole body, you know, like you could be the most calmest, balanced person in the world, but you can still be susceptible to emotions. You can still be susceptible to people getting you into a certain space that's not you, right? To where you're like, man, I'm behaving in a way that's normally not me. Like I was just fine like a couple days ago, or I was just fine like a couple minutes ago. Now my whole day is thrown off, right? Now it's hard for me to get out of this space, and that's what these entities want you to be. They want you to be in a space. They want your tesseract to now be swimming in waters that are dangerous or that are theirs. You know what I mean? They want you in their domain. They want you to be swung by here and there. And the moment that you start thinking outside of the box, like, man, I don't want to feel like this, like, oh, like, you know you're mad, but you also know that, like, it's hard to unmad yourself in that very moment, right? It's hard to unsad yourself, right? That's why you have like people like friends or family come along and they'll try to cheer you up and whatnot and kind of get you out of that space, even though you're in that space. And we all know it, we all feel it. You can feel it right when you walk in the room. But the moment that you start to be like, you know what, I don't want this energy anymore, I don't want to give off this energy anymore, it's hard, right? It's hard. Like there's a resistance to it. It's almost like yeah, I know, but I'm still mad. Like I'm not done being mad yet. I haven't squeezed out all of my madness, all my anger yet, or I haven't got out all my tears yet, or I haven't finished letting go of all my wrath about what's going on, you know. And it's like, why is it, there's a reason why we can't just stop and be like, you know what, I am tripping, you know what, let me just leave this alone. Like, let me go back and being happy and like, yeah, you know what, I was just mad, but hey, now I'm happy. I just realized I'm better now being happy than I was mad. Wow, that's crazy. Like it doesn't happen like that. When people are mad and they're angry, like, and then there's this awkward time that goes by and they tire themselves out and they come back around, and it might be an apology, might not, depending on who they are, whatever, and it's the whole thing. But people, it's not really like, yo, you did this, you know what? Why am I even mad? I love you. You love me. Well, like, why are we even arguing? It's okay. And even if we get to that space, even the other person that you might be arguing with, then might be the person that's like, you know what? No, you just did all that, and now you're just trying, then it could be a whole thing where it's going. And that's just how humans are, right? That's just us getting caught up in the fourth and the third. And that's how our bodies are meant to react to these energies, these higher energies. They're meant to be driven by those things. That way, when your higher self decides to use you and be like, hey, we're here now, let's do this thing, you're not going to be in a space where you're like, oh, I hear something, but I don't want to do it. You're going to be in a space where your whole body feels compelled to do it. Like God himself is helping you to get through this thing, right? It's because we are attached to those higher planes, and those higher planes are the driving force of what makes us do things. These emotions, right? Emotions will make you do things you would never ever think you could do, right? And these emotions are meant to help you to overcome these things, meant to help to overcome sadness and depression and all of these things. But we live in a world that's been going on for so long, like I mentioned about the fourth. In your brain, your mind is like a sponge. It's constantly being, it's like taking a fish out of water, right? Like, like the fish needs the water. And if our minds are all fishes in an ocean or a lake, and time over all this time, they know that, hey, if we change the water, we can change these fishes. That's literally what's going on in our mind. We live in like a mental sea, and the water's polluted. So, as your little goldfish freaking tesseract brain mind is going through things, it cannot help but be influenced by its surroundings. And you have to know that as a human. And the third, that there are limits, I wouldn't say limits, but there are weaknesses to this form as far as that goes, right? You're still subjected to your environment. But it wasn't necessarily intended for it to be a negative thing. It was supposed to be a beautiful thing, and it still is. It's all working for the greater good, but it's also for us to understand more now that we've gone through these things and seen the separation and see the dissonance, so that way we can actually understand the relationship and why it's here and so forth. So we're doing some pretty cool things here in this generation, in this lifetime, knowingly or not, but we're strong. We're stronger than we think, but yeah, entities and intentions, the fourth dimension, these are the things that are going to keep pulling you away from the fifth, right? Fear, right? Imagination, the things that don't exist, the things that we hyper sensationalize, or the things that we choose to ignore. It's like on the fourth, right? We can kind of store it all there in that dark little memory spot. But that's the veil between the higher dimensions and us, right? I mentioned before about the water bottle in the lake, how if you take the water out of this pond and put it in a water bottle, it's still the same water, but the bottle is the container is literally the difference between the water that's in the pond and not, even though it's the same water, you know? But in essence, but that container, the water bottle, is literally what the fourth dimension is. It's not designed to be like we're separate from the universe and this is all hell. Like now that I'm a water in the bottle, it's hell now compared to what it was when I was in the lake. No, it's supposed to be that way because we're supposed to be. We can't just be in the lake for eternity and that's all there is. I mean, even though it still works that way, but we're expanding. Like the universe is cool. Like the all is actually really badass. And it's, we kind of just get things messed up over time. But that's fine. That's just the waves. That's just energy. That's just how it goes, right? Y'all know how it goes. Y'all know what it is. But anyways, just be mindful and be careful. And when these entities come for you and come for your body and come for they want your actions to can control the outcome of your actions. Just be ready, be willing, be vigilant. Understand that, hey, I just got a notion for this, and I kind of feel like this is like the point where I can either say no or yes, like mentally. I won't have to say nothing physically. It's still gonna happen. But this is the point where I'm like, okay, do I like feed into it or not? Especially when it comes to lustful thoughts or whatever. It can be definitely hard to kind of break yourself out of that space because now you're thinking about it and you feel like sometimes these entities will make you feel entitled. Entities will make you feel entitled to act out those things. Like, you know what? I do deserve that. Oh, no, that is for me. Oh, you know what? They deserve that. And so forth, right? To justify the means. It's really just an entity over here controlling you. That's why people say, oh, like I wasn't myself, or I was cheating, or it was the alcohol, or it was this and that. But yeah, some of these are cop-out excuses for sure, because it's your decision. But it is true though. The things that there are unseen forces that are like waves in the water that are like kind of pulling you this way, pulling you that way. You may not be able to see it because we're in our body, but mentally that's literally what's going on. So we have to be vigilant and we have to be mindful. And when you feel these energies come, try to do the opposite. Like I mentioned before about the argument thing, try to do the opposite. Try to do like, oh, we're arguing and I'm all hot and I'm all feeling this heat and constricted and all this like what? Like I was just at peace. Like take a moment. It's hard sometimes. A lot of times you just gotta take a walk and take your mind into a space that it's not in, right? To come back around and to look at it with fresh eyes. And we do that all the time. Sometimes we don't need a walk, even though a walk is perfect. I'm not saying don't do a walk. Please do a walk. And if somebody's telling you don't do a walk, that's controlling, that's manipulation. You should always be able to walk away and think about something and come back to it and talk with a more clear mind. If somebody's trying to make you feel bad for taking a walk, that is literally demonic. and that's a huge red flag. They're just trying to control the situation. Now, if you're trying to go take a walk so you can call this person or do something else, yeah, okay, that's a different thing. But if you're just trying to take a walk because you need to reset, yeah, please, for the sake of the universe. But when you're in those moments where you're like, nah, I don't want this feeling, or nah, this feels weird, that's where that's where you start to make that change, and you can start to feel these entities not resonate with you anymore, and it's going to make your body feel like it's not resonating because you're getting something that's certain occupying that space right now, even though you don't feel it, you don't see it. There's something occupying that space that now doesn't feel that anyway anymore, and so it's going to try to make you like the ego in it doesn't want to leave or doesn't want to die, so it's going to make itself feel more connected to who you are, right? Like a parasite, right? It's gonna make you feel like that's who you are, right? But it's just a parasite type vibe. You can feel them. You can feel them in the room. I feel them in the room. I've been feeling them all my life. I just haven't been noticing it. I just be thinking it's like little cracks and like little bops and like little things dropping. But just like Interstellar, like there's some shit out there for real. That's not your family looking for you, but also just things that need something to feel real because they've only made it up to the fourth. They don't know what's beyond the fourth, or they may have awareness of it, but they're not able to get up there. And so instead of doing the work for themselves, they're really going to just focus on other beings. That's where you get a lot of these parasitic entities from, because they need something else to make themselves feel like they exist. They have to go to something else. They have to go to someone else. They're mentally, they have to go see somebody, have to go hear somebody, have to go look at somebody, have to go, they have to find something. They're constantly looking for something, right? And it's just that's just what they do. That's what the Tesseract does. The Tesseract is constantly flowing. It's the same thing. It's not looking, but it's flowing. The Tesseract's constantly going, right? It's constantly experiencing. But when these things are in negative energy, they're constantly just seeking and seeking, just like the snake in the dot, right? Constantly looking and looking and looking to find something to keep that flame alive, to keep that emotion, because they're attached to the emotion, because that's the highest thing that they've felt is that emotion, but not the release of that emotion, not the letting go of those things. So that emotion is literally, when they get ramped up to that spot, now that they're in their bag now. You know what I mean? Like people that be serving these entities, whenever they get in that emotion, that's when they really be in their bag, because now they back in the sweet spot. Like they're working, they're serving a higher power that's not the highest, and it's not even that much higher than them, because really, if anything, they're giving away their power, which is making them lower, but it's also making something above them. You know what I mean? Because we're already fourth dimensional beings, but we're experiencing on the third, and a lot of spirits will diminish their power to the third, right? We walk by faith. We don't walk by sight. I don't walk by sight. I've been walking by sight for years. I've been walking by faith for years. And you know the difference. You know the energies. When you walk by faith, you know the energies as they come, because you know the mission that you got to go, that leap of faith. And whenever you take that leap of faith, anything that comes to you now is all due to the Most High setting that up for you, because you let go of everything else, and you're like, you know what, world? I don't care about any of this stuff going around. It's you and me. I know there's a higher power, and I know that I'm infinite.